Good morning. Today, I would like to talk about Trailblazers. First people to do a thing, or people to introduce people to do a thing. It is said, for whatever that's worth, that the 4-minute mile is not something that was thought to be possible until someone did it. And then once someone did it, a whole bunch of people did it afterwards. It wasn't part of their figuring, it wasn't part of their goals, it wasn't part of what they thought was humanly possible. Until someone did it, and they said, oh, the dam broke. And then people were free to imagine that they could do it. And then they could. So there's a lot of opportunity, kind of. Well, technically, in a business sense, it's usually you usually want to be the second person in the boat. The first person in the boat takes all the risk and accepts most of the risk, I should say. And then the second person looks and sees, oh, it is a good model, but here's how they should do it better. And then the second person is usually the one that makes it very profitable or very successful. I have a CD player on my car dashboard here, and it's one of those just slot kinds. So it's just got an open slot, and you just put the CD in. Well, this looks a lot like something that would go into a slot. So when my 2-year-old had the opportunity, and mommy was appropriately distracted, she went ahead and tried to get a bag of Doritos out of the CD-ROM vending machine and inserted a bunch of coins in. This was right before a long trip and kind of blew our ideas of listening to an audiobook on the way there. So, yeah, not great. But it's a simple thing, or seems like a simple thing. And you know me, I'm a do-it-yourselfer. So, but this is also my car. It's a pretty old car at this point, but it's a good car. I still don't want to, grab a crowbar and go hacking away at the front panel. Also, my experience with this whole dashboard region is usually that there's 1,000 tiny clips all fitted together properly, and just so that everything snaps together. And then if you fail to snap them together properly, or if you break one of the clips, that you're going to have to deal with a dashboard creak or a squeak while you're driving for the rest of your days. That's not a prospect I was very excited about enduring. So the idea of having to take apart the dash in order to get the radio out, to either shake it out or take it apart, was not something I was looking forward to. Still, even if I were to pay someone to do it, the prospect is still hundreds of dollars. It's probably I'm not gonna walk in there with a $20 bill and walk out with 89 cents in change and a working CD. So I was not looking forward to it. And I realized I was getting an idea for what I'm in for, and I opened up YouTube, lovely YouTube, and typed in some information about radio changes, and turns out it was much easier than I had expected. The whole frame around the CD interface, along with the climate control, pops off with like 4 snaps. That's it. And once you know where the snaps are, all you have to do is pry upward gently on them in those 4 locations, and everything pops out quite harmlessly. And once that's out, everything was all the screws were exposed, and you could just unscrew a few things, undo a few clips, and then pull the whole head unit out. Once the head unit was out, I was hoping to just shake the whole thing and find, have all the change fall out the slot. That did not happen. There was more inside. So the whole thing is, EM shielded, so it's wrapped in layers of steel. And I said, well, you know, we've already gone this far. Let's just grab a screwdriver. And started undoing screws until I realized that the top panel itself was removable. And then once I opened the top panel, I could see the actual CD-ROM unit was a smaller part encased in the outer cage of the whole head unit. So technically, all I really had to do was snap off these, undo the snaps on the front panel, just pull it off, undo the screws so I could pull the head unit forward a little bit, undo those top screws, open it up, and hey presto, there's my there's my Snickers bar change. Just pull it right out of there. So in the future, whenever more change gets deposited into the coin slot, it'll be maybe 10 minutes to fix it. And all of that is due to me having a YouTube video. That was it. Just having some introduction. And I remember this very specifically because before YouTube existed, I would look for a long period of time for someone on some forum, usually about a car forum, who posted a full tutorial or full guide or whatever, and that was a bunch of pictures and close verbal or typed out descriptions of what's happening, and hopefully, if you're lucky, you get like highlighted areas and arrows and all kinds of good stuff like that. That was ideal at that point. And once you could see how someone else did it, you could decide whether or not you could see yourself doing it, and that was the real challenge. Because if you could get there, then you can do it yourself. It's a lot easier to get to that point. You also get some, a ballpark estimate of how difficult this is going to be. I've seen the head gaskets on the Subaru, on the engine, on the Boxer engine, and they're both on the sides, sticking out right next to the wheel wells. And I can't imagine. I gotta say, you probably almost certainly have to drop the engine in order to change out those head gaskets, but maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. But still, the Trailblazer is, let's do a sneeze here. Achoo. There we go. The Trailblazer is still the person who is taking most of the risk. And that's not even necessarily the case here, because this is someone who, the video that I found was from someone who did audio replacement, new stereo installs on the cars, and had probably done 1,000 of those. So he just figured, well, why don't I just record a video of this real quick? And there you go. Now, thousands or hundreds of thousands of people can see that video and say, all right, here's how I do it myself. That was super easy. And that's kind of what I'm struggling with here. It's because I've been a Trailblazer before, and it's something where it's kind of in your wheelhouse, and you're just kind of like, let's just try stuff. Let's figure it out. See what happens. And then once you get that process figured out, you can start optimizing it and figuring out the easiest way to do it. And that's obviously, if you're doing stereo installations on a car, you're going to figure out the fastest, easiest way to do it so that you get the most bang for your customer's buck, and then move on to the next project. So there's some that trailblazing spirit is not always necessary, I guess, but I guess sharing it kind of is. This still gets back to the whole professional knowledge thing. The idea that you can say, 200 years ago, if you wanted to be a woodworker, you would have to go to a carpenter and say, hello, teach me all that you have. Teach me all that you know, become that person's apprentice, or usually be that person's son. That was it. You were doing the family business, and the way you learned the family business was by helping your dad, and that was it. I mean, you're a carpenter, you're a bricklayer, you're a whatever, because that's your family business. And that was pretty much the only way to learn whatever it was that you were trying to learn, that profession, that field. Now, I can wander onto YouTube and spend 10 hours getting a very solid starter primer course on how to become a woodworker. Obviously, there's a lot of tacit knowledge and little bits and pieces that are completely different that aren't probably not included in that video, but that's stuff you can learn. You can get an idea of if this is something you want to even attempt. And the way you do that is learn, just try stuff, figure it out. So I'm trying to apply this in some other places. I'm also thinking about this. I'm listening to an audiobook called Digital Minimalism, and yeah, we're still recording. Okay, just making sure. Audiobook on digital minimalism, and it's a lot more laser focused. It's much more of a scalpel than I had expected. It's easy to say just detox, lol. Turn it off, lol. But his plan is to build interactions and interfaces that make it so that it breaks down the seriously addictive nature of a lot of these programs. The way that it breaks down the features of the addiction mechanisms that are intentionally designed like a slot machine into the application. And it's just about changing the relationship. It's not about saying, this whole thing is toxic, you need to quit it, because a lot of us can't quit everything, or even most things in most cases. But we can change how we interact with it, and what set up boundaries and rules for how to interact with these things, operating procedures. Because some things are valuable. Some small portion of your interaction with Instagram is actually valuable, like personally valuable, professionally valuable, and 90% of the whole rest of it is usually pretty abusive. So I really like his problem statement. So as I'm considering this, and I'm considering YouTube and my relationship with YouTube, and even this relationship with YouTube, I'm considering how this all fits into it. Yeah, if you don't have if your library has an app or gives you web access to an app, this is something that I've had the libraries have digital editions. Our library has digital borrow checkouts, I guess. You can borrow books through Amazon. So I can go on the the library's website, find a book, say, I want to read this ebook, and I want to read it on my Kindle. And the library says, okay, redirecting you to Amazon. You go to Amazon, you click borrow on Amazon. Amazon feeds you a .mobi, or rather a feeds you a forget what it is, the .kindle file, whatever, a file for you to load onto your Kindle, and then you sync that file to your Kindle, and then your Kindle can read that. You're reading that book that you checked out digitally from the library. Those are undeserved air quotes, but still fun. That's fantastic. And similarly, there's an application that lets me do audiobooks through the library, and I'm not even going to the library. I just pick up my phone, I click on Libby, I tap on Libby, I do a search for Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. It says, here's all the audiobooks, here's all the ebooks, and I say, cool, check out. And then I'm listening to an audiobook. This is not something that is or should be or needs to be limited to geographic location. And usually, these libraries will allow you to, as a non-resident, apply for some kind of membership or pay for some kind of membership. And I can't imagine that it's very expensive. I know that there's a local library, semi-local library, whose fee I know is $10. But for $10, I get all of these ebooks, all of these audiobooks, and I mean, I just wonder if like a more expensive library, a library with a bigger budget, has more media available to them, more e-media available to them. And if I could like call them up or write them a letter with a check in it and get a membership card, and then just log on to their website and e-read and e-audiobook all I want. Because that's a lot of information for probably a very, very inexpensive fee. That's a lot of access to a lot of knowledge. Might be a good way for libraries to get their funding. Conclusion.